Hey, what's going on, guys? Calvin Russell here, CEO and founder of 850 Club Credit Consultation. Hope everyone's doing well today. Today, we're going to talk about how can you get an apartment if you don't have any credit history, okay? Let's go to get this ball rolling. So, of course, a lot of people know how to build credit, but some of you all are in that time gap. Where either you're fresh out of a bankruptcy and you're rebuilding your credit. You really may not even have any credit because everything's all old and already part of the bankruptcy. As an example, some of you all may be brand new to credit, right? Just moving out on your own, trying to do your own thing, and you're trying to get an apartment. You don't have the best credit history, or you've been in the game for a while. You still just don't have credit history. Sometimes that happens too. A few people get a few accounts, they get paid off, and they don't really do anything outside of that. So that plays a major role in your success trying to get an apartment. So what are some things that you can do? Number one, if you don't have any credit history, you may or may not even have a credit score. This needs to be explained, okay? A lot of times you can't really put that on an application. If I were you, I would go ahead and type up an explanation letter. With mortgages, we're used to solving a lot of problems with what we call LOE, or a letter of explanation, okay? And essentially it explains why you don't have any credit history, why you don't have a credit score. You don't have to go too deep into detail, but essentially you're just letting them know that, hey, I don't have any credit history. I may not even have a credit score, but I do have XYZ. So let's start off with what those XYZs could be. Number one, the ability to pay rent early in advance. So for example, if you're signing, let's say, a 1-year lease, you'll instead of you paying the first and the last, you probably could pay the first 2 months and the last 2 months, the first 3 months, the first 6 months. So a lot of times, landlords are willing to make that a part of something. The letter that you have, you can always just print 5 of those out, 10 of those out as you start putting in applications for places to live. You can staple that, to the application. Not everyone does an electronic application. A lot of rental situations are still old school, just because, of course, you want to see the property, they want to see you. And but that letter is going to be essentially the storyteller, or the explanation, if you will, for your situation. So let them know that you can pay, if you can, rent much early on. Okay. Another example is the amount of savings that you have. You may be able to just, of course, pay rent, but you're saying, hey, listen, I have X amount of, dollars in my savings account, 5,000, 10,000, 15, 20,000. And that shows if something does happen, I do have, access to that. Right. And then, of course, so that's one example. A third example is a stronger security deposit. Now, if you haven't noticed, a lot of places to live, apartments, condos, homes for rent, whatever you're renting, a lot of places are kind of backing away from security deposits, just because of, if you don't know, security deposits are supposed to be in interest-bearing accounts. Okay, I'll say that one more time. Security deposits, well, at least in the state of Illinois, okay, your state may be different, but in the state of Illinois, we're supposed to have the security deposits in an interest-bearing account, and it's supposed to stay in that account, okay, bearing interest, which means that it's growing, okay, and that's from the time that you move in until the time that you move out. What does that mean? That means that, of course, your money's growing. So a lot of people don't know, if you have $2, $3, $4, $5,000 security deposit, not only, of course, you can try to increase that amount, if you don't have any credit history or credit score, but your money could also be growing inside of that account as well too. So find out what your state laws are for a situation like that. Another way you could do it is, of course, getting a cosigner, right? Someone who obviously is willing to put their name on your name. Put their name on the application as same as yours, as a cosigner. So essentially saying, hey, if I'm not able to pay rent, this person is essentially saying that I'm co-signing for them. So if they're late, hit them up as well. Okay. So you most definitely can get into an apartment, with those types of strategies. And I always recommend typing this up, because, again, having to explain this to someone, sometimes people will forget it, or they'll forget who told them. So again, if there's 5, or even if there's 3 people, 5 people, 10 people looking at one particular property, they may remember the story. They'll remember how it made them feel, but they may not remember who told them that story. Okay. So staple that, to the application. And it's not a sob story. It's just saying, hey, I know what you're going to see. You love me, but you may not love the fact that I don't have any credit history or anything like that. I think that should be explained all the time anyway, especially if you had like an eviction or something like that. We have a client that she was not able to get an apartment because she essentially had an eviction that was not her fault. And she could show proof of that. But of course, she had to staple a court document. See, without that court document, there's no explanation. But it essentially said that the landlord deemed a particular individual responsible for that amount of money, for the lease. And essentially, the other two people essentially paid their portion, which I'm very surprised. Usually, apartment complexes don't get that deep involved into it. It's either, if it's paid, then it's everybody's fault. If it's not paid, it's everybody's fault. So the risk is going. I'm sorry, not the risk, but the fact that the apartment complex landlord, owner, whomever. But essentially, the fault is for everyone that's on the lease. That's how things normally go. But an explanation letter is always great to have. It's a sheet of paper, guys. You can easily type something up. You can either type something up on your phone, screenshot it, print it at the local whatever print place you go to, print it at your job, and attach it to your application. That way it explains what the scenario is, okay? So hopefully that video was helpful. If you like this video, like it. If you want to share it, share it. And as always, be sure to subscribe as we have nothing but great content on the way. Thank you all so much. Have a great day.